Hello, and welcome to the Mental Wealth Mamas podcast. I'm Ellie.
And I'm Jade, and we are two mums on a mission to end the silence that surrounds mental health.
Disclaimer, we are in no way medical professionals. We are not giving medical advice. If there is something you are concerned about, you should always seek medical help via your GP or maternity services.
This is in no way a substitute for therapy. We respect everyone's right to an opinion and hope this helps those who need it.
We talk about everything from the roller coaster that is parenting, mental health in general, and what it really means to achieve mental wealth.
We will be chatting to lots of different people from all walks of life, both in the public eye and your everyday person. But today is mostly about you getting to know us. We will be chatting about our personal journeys, why we started, and the vision we have for this podcast, and what mental wealth really means to us. So where do we even start? If I lead in with my side of things and then hand over to you, as I think maybe that order kind of makes more sense.
Yeah.
So in short, the Mental Wealth Mamas was actually created due to a conversation I had with my husband almost a year ago now, as part of my therapy and journey recovering from PTSD and OCD. And I'm going to put a side note in there saying I will revisit the term recovery at a later point. I was very much encouraged to chat as much as I could to the people around me, and especially my husband, and basically bring him in to my therapy sessions. He didn't necessarily attend my therapy sessions, well, he didn't, but everything I spoke about, I was encouraged to go back and speak to him as well. This was an amazing technique for me, and it really helped me gain back some control. So it's a habit that I've kind of kept up, and we don't schedule chats, or it's nothing structured or anything like that. It's more if we have time together, usually like on a dog walk or a car journey when the kids have fallen asleep, or when my eldest is at school, we'll kind of do like a check-in with each other, and then just kind of chat, see if anything's bothering us, that kind of thing. It's not like, we counsel each other, but it's more just like a just a check-up kind of thing. And it's a habit that I've kept up. And when we were speaking before, he kind of told me how proud he was for speaking so openly about my mental health, because it's something I really struggled to do in the past. I struggled to open up at all. So we were kind of reflecting on that, and now I'll speak about my mental health as easily as I will tell people, like, I had lasagna for dinner last night. Like, it's an easy thing for me to say now. And our chat kind of moved on to reflecting on how I wish I'd known at the start of my journey what I knew now, and kind of looking back to like how I am today. And my husband kind of said to me, it's a real shame you don't have a job helping others with their mental health, because you have so much passion for it. And those words really stuck with me, because actually he's right, I do. And it stuck to the point where I kept thinking on it, and I kept thinking on it, and I thought, I don't really think I'm at a time in my life where I can retrain at all. I have too much going on. I have 2 children, a business. It's not really practical for me to retrain. And also, I don't necessarily know if I'm the right person to be a therapist or a counsellor. I think I kind of absorb too much, maybe. And I've got myself to a really good point mentally where I know where I can stop in terms of adding stress and adding my load, and I happily will not keep adding. So that wasn't really an option for me. But I still wanted to kind of find a way to, learn and talk to other people and build a community. And I found through my business that people speak to me about their mental health anyway. So I kind of wanted to find a way to carry that on and, build a hub almost, and be a sounding post for those who need it. So that the next person who struggles like I did has an easier way to find the path to get help. You can never, what's the saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can't do this for people.
No.
But I think that looking back, had I have even known where to start with getting help, that would have been huge. And I love the idea of speaking to people, you know, everyday people in the public eye, to very much show that mental health does not discriminate. And if we all talk about it, the stigma will eventually end because the silence ends. And so the podcast was born. Ta-da! But I knew in order for it to fully work, I needed a co-host, I needed somebody to bounce off of, I needed a well-rounded view. Because even though, you know, I'm learning, I'm absorbing from other people as well, we have differing opinions, we have differing backgrounds, you know, and I think that was really important. And Ellie and I have known of each other distantly, I'd say, for a while. But what's always been super clear about you is how profoundly outspoken you are when it comes to your mental health. And I don't mean that in like you share every single detail, but you are very like, you know, I will speak about my mental health. If this is a good space for me to do it, I will do it. And I'm here to listen if other people do. So that was kind of clear, and your passion's been very clear. So it was kind of a no-brainer really for me to message you. So I will hand over to you now, because I've been speaking for a really, really long time. And like you can kind of share your side of things and how you came into it.
Okay, so I feel like it was early August. So we were in France. I was with my mum and my kids on holiday, summer holidays. And I remember we had been down by the pool. I can literally envision it so clearly. We were down the pool and I checked my phone and I had a message from you, and I thought, oh, that's funny. Like, we don't have a relationship where we message a lot. And also I know you're not the most easiest to get hold of anyway, so a message from you, and I opened it on Instagram. I opened it and I was like, oh my god, this is not a message, it's like an essay. I was like, oh, okay. So straight away interest was piqued, and I was reading it through and I was like, oh my god, this sounds so exciting. You were telling me about your idea and all this stuff, and I was just like, instantly I was buzzing. I was like, oh my god. And I was like, I can remember being by the pool and the kids were in the pool and they're like, what mummy? And I was like, oh, and I was like, I had to go find my mum. I was like, listen to this, and then I thought, hang on a minute.
I remember you saying that.
I think I sent you a voice note back and I was like, I just need to clarify. Are you asking me to come on and talk about mental health, or are you saying let's do this together? Because before I get like super buzzing,
way ahead of myself.
Like, also, do I need to humble myself a little bit? And you were like, no, we're going to do this together. And I was like, boom, let's go. Like, and I love podcasts. Like, I have been listening to podcasts for years, and I often use it in like a time where I've like maybe got something going on, or I feel like I need maybe a bit more knowledge on something, or a bit more clarification on something. I will look to find a podcast maybe about that topic. So I already could see the vision, or I already had a vision very quickly, and I've thought about doing a podcast before, but then I was like, well, how do I do a podcast on? Like, what have I got to say? You know, self-doubt and all that.
Imposter syndrome.
So when you said, I was like, this is so exciting. And the interactions that we have had previously, you're very chill, like you're very laid, like
chaotic, laid back.
I was just gonna say, you're not like a chill, like so horizontal, like, but you're so easy to get on with.
Oh, thanks. And
we've had all of our interactions we've had have been just like, we just get on straight away. So I instantly, even though at the start of this I didn't know you very well, I feel like instantly we've come together because we've both got a real passion for the topic. And then that has led to, you know about my personal life, I know about your personal life, and we're really growing and building something together. And I think, the stars have aligned.
And I think as well, that's really important, because we didn't know each other that well. I think like you saying that, you know, we didn't have to, like, we've known of each other for such a long time. We talked, but you don't have to fully know somebody to be able to.
It's not like we were going into this as besties.
No,
and it's not like we're like, oh my god, we know everything about each other's lives. Which I think is quite nice, because then we're learning, and I'm like every time we do an episode, we're like, I'm learning something new about you, you're learning something. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it's connecting and we're growing together.
Which is really nice. It's exactly what I was supposed to be. I actually remember as well, like random flashback there. Okay. That's how my brain works. I remember you doing a treatment for me, and I was chatting to you.
Oh yeah.
And I do find it easier to chat to people when I can't see them. I know that sounds really weird, which is why I did all my therapy phone calls to start with.
Yeah.
But anyway, see, I've gone off on a tangent. But I think you were doing like my eyebrows or something, and I was chatting to you, and I was saying about needing to feel like prepared. So I would pack little backpacks and make sure that we had them everywhere we went. And you were like, okay, should we just unpack this a second? Like, and so but the thing is, I think that was one of the things that led me to be like, oh, maybe that's not normal.
Oh,
and like,
stop.
No,
That's
but in a good way.
No, but I know, but it's like,
because what I had done is where my daughter was really poorly when she was born, and we kind of hadn't anticipated that, so we didn't have stuff that we needed at the hospital. And then again, when she was 3 months old, she was very poorly. She ended up back in hospital, and I remember packing that bag thinking, I know something is wrong with her. I'd gone to the GP and they had said, oh, we're running behind time, she's just got a cold, you're a first time mum. And I remember thinking, no, I know something is wrong with her. I know that she's ill. So I went home, I packed a bag, and I walked up to the walk-in centre, and within 10 minutes of being there, she'd gone grey and floppy, and the next thing we were in an ambulance going to the hospital. And I remember thinking, you know, eventually, not immediately, but oh my God, it's a good job I packed that bag because I have everything I need for her.
Yeah.
So I never realised how much that affected me, to the point where I would have a bag in the hallway, a bag in the car. I mean, I still do it slightly, but it's, you know, wellies and boots, not anything like that. But I still, you know, I was packing about, I was making sure we had bags everywhere with charger, power pack, you know, spare stuff for me, spare stuff for her, bottles, all of this stuff, because I was so panicked.
You had that in the back of your head that at any point you could need to go to hospital and you need to have something with you.
And it was that conversation that I had with you where I was like, oh, actually, maybe that's not normal. Maybe I need to kind of chat through that. And that was one of the things. So I vividly remember that, actually, because I was like, that was quite a turning point for me as well.
I forget that I did the treatment. But that was so long ago.
Yeah, I know.
That's mental, isn't it?
Anyway, so now you know how the podcast came to life. We thought we'd answer a few questions that have been coming through on our social media. And up until now, we have not revealed who we are. We've barely revealed anything. We've been very, is the term secrets, girl?
Yeah.
Yes. I was like,
that is the
hang
term.
on a minute. Yeah. Secret squirrel.
Yeah.
I can't say that.
Squirrels.
Okay. Anyway, so it's nice to, you know, be able to fully open up on here and answer as many questions as possible.
Because we are quite open books.
Yeah. But without any, yes, we do. We have noticed that a bit too much. But we, you know, it's nice to do it without the kind of like, you know, alias and very little detail in it.
Very true.
Yeah, so we'll go through the questions now.
Okay, so the first question is, what are your experiences with mental health? So for me, I grew up a very, happy kid, you know, just bumbling through life, all that stuff. And then my first experience with mental health was my dad committed suicide when I was 14. So obviously at the time, because I was 14 years old, I didn't realise necessarily the impact that mental health had to play in that.
Yeah.
But obviously the work that I've done, so then I did grieving counselling. Bereavement counselling is the term. So it's like when a family member dies, and usually under like a really traumatic, I mean, obviously all loss is traumatic, but under that kind of scope. And I remember doing that, and that really helped. And that was like my first experience with therapy or anything like that. And so I learned quite quickly that my dad's mental health suffered so badly that he chose that was his only option. Do you know what I mean? And so that's kind of then what I've gone through my adult life with. So that's like my first experience, I suppose, and it's obviously a really large one, to deal with like mental health. And then but again, I wouldn't have said like I was an anxious person or anything like that. Then when I had my eldest, they touched on like postnatal depression and things like that. But it kind of came from a perspective of like, if you don't love if you look at your baby, you don't feel anything for it. So I had her, and oh my God, I loved her so much, and everything was amazing. We were living at my in-laws, and then like very quickly, because the plan was to stay there and save, but very quickly we realised that actually we need to get our own place. So we moved into our flat when she was 8 weeks old, and so the kid's dad was going, he was doing shift work. So he was gone for long periods of time, but we were living in Henley, and it was fine because my family were in Henley and I had a friendship group, and it was fine. So I was in this, very exciting new flat, gorgeous baby, loved that, loved the relationship I was in, all this stuff. It was wonderful. So I was like, I was just like, when you have like your midwife checks and all this stuff, I was like, I'm good, like it's all fine. And then I can remember being, so he came in from, I don't know if it was work or something, but he wasn't in the house, and I think it must have been work, and Bella was in the rocker next to me, and I obviously had put her in there like to have a nap, and then I'd fallen asleep and I was just asleep, and he'd come in and she was like crying, not like screaming or anything, but she was next to me, so really you should have waited. And that was like, I think the first thing that made me go, that's weird. Do you know what I mean? And then it was like, before I knew it, like it was 3 months we'd been in the flat, and I was like, still had boxes like unpacked, like that weren't unpacked. So it's like all these little things that kind of came in. So, and then I just had like no motivation to like leave the house. So I found that I'd be like in the house for days. Like people would come see me, and like I'd be absolutely fine with people coming, but I didn't want to leave the house. And not because, it's almost like I just didn't have the energy to do it. I was putting everything I had into her and building this relationship with her, and I loved it. And I think someone must have said, "Oh, do you think you've got postnatal depression?" I was like, "No, like that looks like this." Whereas actually, I did. I went to the doctor, and they said, "Yeah, we think you've got postnatal depression." And I was like, I think everything after my dad, it gave me this weird warped view of getting help. And I don't know why, haven't unpacked that, but I've always been quite anti like taking medication. And I'm talking like even a paracetamol. Like I don't know why, I don't like it. So then the thought of like having the conversation with the doctor and talking about like taking antidepressants or taking things, I was like, no, not me. Tell me another way to deal with it, and I will go that route. So that's all. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm just saying that's what I felt was my journey. So yeah, did it, worked on it, made sure I was leaving the house every day, even if it was just to go for a walk around a field, because we live near fields. But we were getting out, and slowly, bit by bit, I came out of it. So wonderful, fabulous, life goes on. Then about 4.5 years later, we had my first son, and we were in a very different place. We were living in a house, we were living in a new town. I don't know, like you feel a bit older, so you feel like you got your shiz together a bit more. Felt really ready, because Bella wasn't planned. We fell pregnant unplanned with Bells, and then we really planned. We planned for Ted's. So we were just like, okay, so what we'll do is we'll do this and we'll do that and we'll go, you know what I mean? And so then I was like, okay, amazing, felt a bit more prepared. Obviously had the postnatal depression in the back of my mind, so I was really kind of like, I was thinking about that more and like how to kind of overcome it. But Bella was going to school, so I knew I had to get out of the house every day because I was having to take her to school. That does help. It really does help. It really helped for me. So that was good. And then he was a horrendous sleeper. And I'm not talking like a little bit bad. Like he would sleep all day and then not sleep at night. And then I just got into this really messed up cycle, because I was so shattered from the night that when he was asleep in the day, I was just really enjoying it. And then, but also at this time I was trying to build my business. So I was relying on the fact that he was having naps in the day so that I could work and build my client base. Do you know what I mean? So I was in this really vicious cycle. And then again, I found my place, and it took longer than it did with Bells, but it took. I was just looking at my life, and I was like, oh, I'm back to it. But then this time I didn't go to the doctors and get. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just was like, right, okay, I really need to sort this. So then you're talking like a couple of years later, and then we had COVID and all that came, and that was stressful in itself, like not working. So that was a struggle. And then after COVID, we had decided that we wanted another child. And that was really hard because that was, with Josh, it was probably the worst pregnancy I had, in the sense of it was the most anxious I felt. Like, I love pregnancy but it was, and I'd heard other people talk about how they had a really anxious pregnancy, and I just never experienced it until I had Joshua, and it was the vaccine and COVID really scary times and this unknown, and trying to trust yourself while you're getting all this barrage of other stuff at you. So that was probably the most, and then you struggle with that, and then life comes at you in all other ways, and I feel like you become more and more like depleted, I suppose, when you're like trying to juggle too many plates. So that's my story of mental health. Ever growing, ever going,
ever learning.
Over to you.
So, I was diagnosed with PTSD and OCD following the birth of my first daughter. I would say that maybe I have struggled prior to her with OCD, but maybe not necessarily had it to the point where, or allowed it, maybe, I don't know, to impact on my life to the point where it was controlling me, if that makes sense. So yeah, probably should have got help beforehand, but you know, you're young, you kind of bumble along, think, no, I'm okay, I'm fine. But then she had a very difficult journey into the world, and she and I were both very poorly and in hospital for a good while after she was born, and during that time no one was doing anything wrong, but then, you know, I was very addled after I had her. I had a lot of meds in my system. I had a spinal and couldn't move very well after. There was lots of things. I have severe memory loss from that time, and I don't know if that's just trauma blocking it or medication. I don't know. But I remember kind of being in and out, and thinking, you know, every time I woke, there would be somebody standing over my baby, and it wouldn't be in a way like they weren't doing anything wrong. They were checking on her. She had IVs in, so obviously they were making sure she had the right medication. Checking, I don't know, they were just checking her, they were checking me. I mean, I woke up, I think I had said yes to meds and I wasn't even awake, and my husband was like, what? And he was poking me and he was like, they've woken you up, asked you if you need pain relief, you've dozed back off again having said yes, and then you literally woke again, kind of obeyed and took it, and then went back out again. He said it was really weird to watch, and I kind of have a brief memory of her standing over me. So there very much was, I would be in and out of, you know, consciousness, and I would wake, there would be someone over my baby there, I would wake, there would be someone over me, and there is a reason I'm saying that, and I'll come back to it. And then I mentioned before that my firstborn, when she was about 3 months old, she got rushed into hospital. She had to be tube fed and have medication again. So every 2 hours, someone was giving her formula, giving her, you know, meds. And we were in for, I think, just less than a week, because it was over Christmas and New Year. And during that time again, it was me that went, I refused to leave her. So during that time, obviously every 2 hours I didn't want anybody to feed her or do anything without me being awake. So every 2 hours I would be someone was over her, waking me so they could, because
yeah.
I don't know, I guess paranoia. I was like, well, I don't know you. I know you're a nurse.
Yeah, of course.
I know, it's your job to take care of her, but
baby.
I don't know you. She's my babe. So I went into like almost hyper focus. Yeah, mama bear. And I didn't realise at the time how much that had an impact on me. But I guess it kind of planted the seed of trauma, shall we say. Yeah, and then kind of going forward from that, so she was about three months old when that happened. And then after that, especially, I would find myself awake till 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, checking windows, checking doors, to make sure no one could get in, so I wouldn't wake up with anybody stood over my baby.
Got you. Okay.
Did you see? Yeah.
Yeah, because you've said things about the checking the doors.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a thing, but now that makes so much sense.
Yeah, but I hadn't put the two together at the time.
Course,
this was just something I was doing.
Yeah.
So I hadn't realised that obviously all of this had happened. It was extremely traumatic. My brain kind of went into, I guess, like self-protection mode and blocked things out. And that still bothers me to this day because I'm still like, I don't remember that happening. Like, why I should remember this massive thing, and I'm like, nope, that is not there. But yeah, so I obviously didn't put two and two together. I was checking windows, checking doors, checking that the kettle was off, checking that the hob wasn't on. I was checking everything, making sure nobody could get in. My husband works night shift, so that also didn't help because I was feeling solely responsible because it was me and her and the dog obviously, but me and her in the house, and I was like, this is on me. I have to check. And I got it in my head that if I checked, so I would check something, so I'd check the door, and then I would be like, I'd walk away and I'd get a couple of meters away and I'd be like, this voice would be like, no, you haven't checked the door, check again. So I'd go and check again, and I'd go and check again. And then I got it in my head that I couldn't check in uneven numbers because then I would have unlocked it. Don't ask me why.
No.
It doesn't make sense. Logic and OCD don't go together, and I'm very aware of that now. Yeah. But at that stage, I was like, no, this is a real thing.
Yeah.
I must go back and check that door. And then I was like, wait a minute, the window. So then I'd be doing this all night long, and then I'd be checking her breathing, and I would count how many times she breathed, and I can't do it for an uneven number, and this went on and on and on. And
would you stay awake and watch her asleep?
Yeah.
Even if you were like super tired,
I would be sat up and I'd be dropping again in and out of consciousness, but I would not. If my husband was there, it was a bit different. I would maybe get a little bit of sleep. He started to become aware of it.
Yeah.
So he would then say to me, do you know what? I really like the 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. shift. No one likes that. No one likes that when a baby's up. No one likes that time. But he was like,
that's horrible.
Right? And I didn't realise at the time. I was like, okay, well, yeah, if that works for you, if you're up through nights anyway, that makes sense. And he was like, yeah, I just ping awake at that time. He did not. He was obviously setting himself alarms that were making him wake up. And he was like, I'll take that shift. I'll have her during that time. I'll have her downstairs, so then you can chill. Still wasn't relaxed, but I was sleeping a bit more. And this went on and on and on. And then we weaned her, and I was paranoid that she would choke. She has a lot of allergies. She was sick a lot, which didn't help. And again, not being believed that there was something wrong. Even though you've got a baby who's covered head to toe in a red raw rash, pukes everything. And I'm there going, this isn't normal, and I'm not really listened to. That was difficult. So then when I was weaning her, that became another thing where I had to count out her food, and I had to, make sure it was even numbers. And again, completely illogical. You can choke on one piece of food, even numbers is irrelevant. But it just seemed to be this thing, and I was doing it with everything though, filling up a water bottle, I was counting how many seconds it would take me to fill up the water bottle. I was counting going up and down the I mean, it had its benefits. She counted quite early. but it was really, really destructive for me, right? Yep. And even everything when I was
That's
getting
not
her
saying.
in the car.
What is it saying?
every
cloud has a silver lining. I was like, every silver cloud has a lining. No, that's definitely not wrong.
Yeah, something like that. My brain was pretty addled. We'll go with that. But yeah, I was doing all of these things, and it was absolutely destroying me. But I was there thinking, this is what it is to be a parent. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I love her so much. This is
we
it.
Just struggle through.
Yeah, I'm like, this is what it is. And I can't really remember how I mean, I had many conversations with other people, and it was becoming apparent, and my mum had said things several times, not in like a bad way, just in a, you know, is that kind of, like I would be doing things and I'd be like, I want you to do it this way, and she'd be like, okay, cool, like, but not really. I could see on her face, she was like, I don't really understand why, but if that's what you need. They were trying, like my mum and my husband especially, were trying to not indulge it, if that makes sense, but support.
It's hard to not like be an enabler, but at the same time to not push you to your limits, that they're like, well, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. And then I think it was after like her first birthday, I don't even know how it came about, but I think I was just at breaking point. I'd done this for a year, like, and I was like, maybe this isn't normal. Maybe how I'm feeling isn't normal. Maybe this isn't parenting. Maybe I need to kind of question this, because I don't feel like I can keep this up. And then I was kind of like, oh my God, I'm a bad mum for feeling that. So I was having a chat with my husband, and I said to him about it, and I said, you know, I think I need help, and I think that something's not quite right. I said, I don't feel depressed as such. My mood is becoming low because obviously I'm not sleeping, so I'm feeling a bit erratic. And I was explaining to him, you know, I felt like I had to do these things to keep her safe, and everything was about keeping her safe. And and he said to me, I know. He said, like, he didn't even, there was no judgment, there was no, what do you mean? He instantly just went, I know. And he was
because I feel like sometimes we think that, like, not when you're in it, but like if you're out of it, sometimes I think you think, well, isn't that obvious? Like, why wouldn't they help you or anything? But it's so hard for your loved ones to step in, because like you say about the whole, you can take a walk. Oh my God, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Like, even if he had said, you need help, you would have just been like,
no, I don't.
All right, great, thanks, that.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the biggest thing, is when you get to that point where you're like actually asking for help. And a lot of people don't get the support. Like, a lot of people have people that are just like, it's just lack of sleep, babe.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And I think it's such a brave thing to take that first step. That first step is the hardest of any of my therapy, of anything, on par with another one, which I'll explain later. But that first step was the hardest. And for me, I was having intrusive thoughts, but I thought that maybe I had schizophrenia, because I was like, I wasn't hearing voices, but because I was having this intrusive thought, I was like, well, what's the difference? And I was terrified to turn around and say, I think I have this, because I didn't want anyone to take my baby because she was safest with me. And one of the things that I really wish they would say more often is that the goal is to keep you with your baby, not take you away from your baby. And they have mum and baby units where you can go. It's basically, you know, at a last resort, they would separate you temporarily, but they want you to be together. And I think as well, like, it's almost like everybody else just comes around and cradles around you and your baby, not standing between you and your baby.
And also, I think it's really important to also say that, like, taking the first step, there can sometimes be multiple first steps.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like I can remember there's been times where, like, so taking that first step with Bella was hard to get the help. But then just because you do it once doesn't, and then you go and get help, and whether you're in therapy or you're taking medication or whatever, and then life carries on, there might be another point in your life where you're like, oh my God, I need help again. And that is essentially a first step, because that's that next chapter. But like, it's still a big thing to ask that. And like, it's not like, one quick fix and then you're done. Like you have to, or I feel that you have to keep like working on it, and not just like people often get like therapy when it's like when something bad has happened or like it's too late.
Yeah.
And then they go to therapy for say amount of time and then they don't carry on working on that issue.
Yeah.
But like just because you deal with it once doesn't mean it's not going to rear its ugly head again.
I always think of it as a lifestyle change. You know how like when people are like, oh, I want to lose weight, they go they're like go for a fad diet,
or they're like,
I'll do this program for 12
I'll juice
weeks.
for a week.
Yeah,
done that.
Yeah. Oh, haven't we all?
Oh god.
Oh, I think Slim Fast. I remember Slim Fast actually made me vomit. I mean, this was way back in the day, so no bad PR for them, but at the time,
don't come to us, Sim.
yeah, please don't. I'm sure it's fine now. This was a very long time ago. But no, I always see it as like a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
It took me a while to realise that, and I think as well, I especially have to acknowledge how lucky I was that I took that first step and I was heard.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people go to the GP, and the GP will point towards antidepressants, or because there is a strain on NHS services, NHS therapies. Sure. There are waiting lists, and in the interim, what do you do? I don't really know the answer to that, but I think I was really lucky that I was heard. I wasn't pushed towards. I was, given the options of medication.
Yeah.
And I absolutely did not want to go down that route, and that for me is because of the medication I was given during labour.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was just an absolute no-go. I was like, I'm not taking anything that will affect my mind at all, my mood. I need to find the root cause of this. And it was actually like in my second lot of cognitive behavioural therapy that I sat and explained everything I just did to you. And she basically said, oh, obviously you've been with a therapist before, talk me through your journey. Start with just before motherhood and then go forward. And when I'd said about waking up and finding people over my daughter, and waking up and finding people over her again and me again, she said, well, it's no wonder that you check doors and it's no wonder that your OCD manifests in this way. And I was like, oh yeah, oh my 100%. God. And then it was a case of addressing shared responsibility and me being able to test the things that I had told myself for so long. So like I would tell myself if I didn't check the door 20 times, something bad would happen to her. And that is a really hard thing to put to the test, because she said to me, check it 18 times. Tell somebody else that you've done it and leave it. So that was the shared responsibility. That's where it came in with the, chatting to somebody, getting them along on your therapy journey. So my husband would literally come to the front door and check, watch me check it 20 times or 18 times this time. And I would walk away from it and I wouldn't sleep anyway, but nothing bad happened. And then we trick it down to 60 and we did it that way. And it's exposure therapy, and it's really hard to do when you think, I knew logically what I was doing wasn't, once I'd locked the door was locked. I knew that. But it was battling this intrusive thought telling me to go and check it again. And I knew that me checking it again wasn't going to make her any safer. Yeah. She was safe. But testing that when it's...
Because it's you against you. Yeah. And it's you against the person in your head. And that's... The person in your head is so loud.
Yeah, and if it had been for me, so if it had been for my safety, I would have tested it, because I'd have been like, okay, well, yeah, it's the consequences on me.
Yeah, for sure.
But because I felt the consequence was on her, that was the hardest thing in the world to test. But once you do it, it then kind of becomes addictive in the sense that you're like, oh, nothing bad, I can do that again. And I can do that again. And then we knocked it down again. And don't get me wrong, there were things that were really difficult. But then all of a sudden, all the logic started to take over more and more and more. I was listening to the logic and the voice was going down. The volume was being turned down and down and down and down, to the point where I'm now like, yeah, okay, if you're there, I can just, I'm going to meet you because you're annoying me. Do you know? No, but do you know what I mean? I can be like, no, we're not listening to that. I'm not doing that.
You have more control over it now.
Yeah, because I'm not giving
Doesn't mean it doesn't come in, but you have control over it.
Oh, it absolutely comes in. Yeah, absolutely comes in. But yeah. So that was my journey, basically, in a very large nutshell.
We like a large nutshell.
Yes. So the next question was, what topics are you most looking forward to talking about? Just gonna open this and hope it doesn't.
I'm excited about everything. I am a sponge, and I am taking this journey as a learning curve, and like I'm really excited to hear from experts, to hear other, because I like to hear people's stories and their experiences. So even if they're not an expert, because we're going to have such a wide variety of, guests, so I enjoy hearing people's life stories and learning from them and seeing what I can take from it, and also seeing what you guys are going to take from it, because hopefully with the interaction like on socials and once we start putting these episodes out there, that we're doing this because we want to build something like a community, a hub, like almost like a support system in your back pocket, so that if you are having a bad day, you could listen to one of our episodes and be like, oh my god, that really, and that would be the greatest satisfaction I think both me and you could get from, but obviously not speaking for you, like if we're knowing that we're helping people, and even if you just get one message from someone saying, oh my god, that really helped me today.
I think also it's obviously I am, and I do speak a lot about my OCD because that is something that has massively affected my life for nearly 6 years now. No, over 6 years. Anyway, by the by, I talk a lot about that, and I find that even if one person listens and they're at the beginning of their journey and they think, oh, okay, that's what I do, and I'll tell you where I got help, and if that means that they cut out all the crap basically that I went through to find the right source 100%. Of information, great. That's all you could want, like,
or see the triggers before it gets to a certain point. I think that's really powerful as well.
Definitely. So for me, again, I am looking forward to covering OCD and PTSD, but that's because obviously I can draw from my own experiences. But generally, everything. I'm really excited to just dive in and learn. And I mean, we have actually recorded an episode before this, and I've learned something already, which I now was like, oh really? Like, I like those moments because I'm like, oh cool. Now, like, that's a nice little fact to pass on.
It keeps, I think both you and I, it keeps us like, oh, what we're going to learn today?
Nice.
Oh, who are you going to hear from? So next question that we've been asked is, what topics are you least looking forward to? So I am an emotional, I've already said to Jade, like, I'm going to probably cry, so we need to actually get a box of tissues. But yeah, anything to do with like loss, like children, just anything like that. It's just hard stories, like hard hitting emotional stories, I think.
I completely agree. I think we're looking forward to giving them the space to be heard.
100%.
But
we
as
know that
mums,
it's going to be hard.
It's going to be you resonate with another mum so much. Like you feel their pain. Like even if you're on the playground and like what somebody else's kid's kicking off and you're like, oh, I feel that. Like I've been there, I feel that. Or when their kid's broken hearted and you're like, yeah, I feel that, because you can do nothing about it.
100%.
And the thought of any kind of loss when it comes to a child is you can feel it, but you don't want to feel it, but you need to give these people the space to talk about it, if that makes sense. And Definitely. It's really tough, but it's not anything on what they're feeling. But yeah, definitely when you're quite an empathetic person, it's going to be a tough one to unpack. And I think as well, where my least looking forward to is actually, again, it's OCD and PTSD, because it's going to be quite a deep dive for me. I've processed, I've gone through therapy, I've done, my steps, blah, 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 blah. But I think when it comes back to revisiting how I was, sometimes it's quite easy to dwell on time that's been lost from me doing all of that. So I try not to do that. So that's going to be a difficult one. So next question. Have you always been open about your mental health?
No. Not always. For a while I was ashamed because I don't think people talked about it enough. But I also then kind of always go back to the thought of my dad, and he was 37 when he died, and I think if you look about how openly mental health is talked, like it's come a long way. I still feel like there's more work to be done, but if he had have been able to go and seek help, would it have been the same like end result? And so that I feel almost a bit of a burden. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like it's burden's maybe not the right word. It's more like a responsibility I have.
Yeah. It's kind of how you carry him forward.
Yeah, and people don't always get it. Like on socials and stuff, I'm quite open. I mean, I don't go into detail, but like people can usually tell like if I'm having a bad day, or like I will come on and say I'm having a bad day or something to that effect. Because, and I love to share quotes.
Oh, we love a quote.
And something that I resonate with, that I tend to do it like if I see something that I'm like, oh, that like gives me a sigh of relief, I will then share it because there are so many people who are struggling day to day and they don't want to talk about it, and that's that is fine because maybe you're not ready to talk about whatever you're going through.
Yeah.
But if you have someone showing up, and this is where I think it comes, like I see it as a responsibility, which is weird a little bit, maybe, I don't know, but like if I can show up through the good, the bad and the ugly. And also, side note is social media, I've always had it imprinted into my brain that it's a highlight reel, and I just never really wanted to succumb to that. Like for instance, like my grandpa died in 2021, and it was so traumatic for me because it was like COVID and all this stuff, and it was really and it put me in a place that I hadn't previously been. Like my anxiety was through the roof.
Yeah.
And then we were obviously trying to get pregnant as well. So it's like a really weird place to be, like a weird headspace to be. And I shared a lot on social media. And I feel like it's in my little world. It's like the people that follow me, it's like almost like what I'm known for now. And it makes people feel absolutely uncomfortable, which I find is really interesting.
Yeah.
Like it's like with like my separation from the kid's dad, when I've shared like little snippets about how I'm feeling about being a single parent, people would rather me not say anything. Like people would, it makes them feel uncomfortable, or like they think I'm oversharing. Like even when I'm not even really saying anything specific, it's just about how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And I find that really intriguing because I'm like, why does it make you feel so uncomfortable? But also, I've had so many people say, oh my God, I felt like this today, or oh, thank you for sharing that. Or like, even if it's like a podcast, a clip of a podcast, or a clip of, I don't know, like someone speaking about something, and I'm like, this really resonates with me. Oh, it could help someone else. And I think now it's like, I take it on me to be, and also to try and be a little bit of positivity. Like people say, oh, you're really positive. And I'm like, yeah, I could be going through the worst thing, but I'll still show up and just try and find the good in a day.
Yeah.
Or do something like I love my kitchen dancing videos. Do you know what I mean? Me and my kids.
Who doesn't love a kitchen disco?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really have a big enough kitchen, so we're all on the lounge at the moment. But
it makes someone feel good.
Yeah.
I'm feeling good. I'm sharing my happiness with someone else. And they might just like it and scroll on, but it might make an impact on someone, and I think that's kind of
the point.
Like making a positive impact could help someone's mental health that day.
It's interesting that you say as well, it makes other people feel uncomfortable sometimes, and you can't get your head around why that is. Because I feel like, so we went, my husband and I went to a wedding not long ago, and I wasn't drinking, and somebody said to me, oh, why not drinking? And I didn't realise that I was dropping such a bomb into a conversation by saying, I just said, I'm up and down with my mental health, like, mostly have it under control, but there are moments in the monthly cycle, which when you say that in a group of men, they're instantly like, But I said there are moments within that monthly cycle where it's not a good week for me, or there are just moments where in a day I'm like, I don't know why I'm triggered here, but I am, and I will literally leave it right up to the event to decide. So we may drive somewhere and I'll decide there and then how I feel as to whether I'm going to have a drink.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not feeling it, I'm not touching it, because I just, it has such a negative effect for me. Like, it's not something that will give me a buzz and cheer me up. I'm like, no, I've got to work through that myself.
Yeah.
So I dropped this into the conversation, and I was kind of met with like a few shocked faces, and I like almost, they were great about it, but it was almost like, oh, okay, I wasn't really expecting you to say that. And then it, like, the conversation slowly flowed on. Anyway, following this, my husband said, oh, they asked me a lot of questions afterwards. And I was like, why did they not just ask me?
Yeah,
like, and he went, I don't think people are used to being such an open book, in the sense that you will literally be there like, yeah, here you go. Like, I'm not laying all my dirty laundry out on the table, but I am very much like,
people don't want to ask questions, but then at the same time they want to ask questions.
Yeah, so I'm like, you want to ask the question?
Come on, let's just get it out.
And also I think, you know what, ask me the question. If I don't want to answer it, I won't answer it.
For sure,
like,
and there's no hard feelings.
And
you just need to be like, I don't really feel like I want to talk about that.
Yeah, like, and just
some
move
things
on.
are just off limits.
Yeah, not many things, but
but you'll get that, guys.
Yes.
We check cafes over here.
Yeah, definitely. So to answer that question though, no, I have not always been open about my mental health. I mentioned earlier that when I was having intrusive thoughts, I thought that I had schizophrenia, which actually is quite a common thing to think. So, and it's weird me saying it now, because actually, even though I'm very open about my mental health, that's not something I say often.
Yeah, I've never heard you say that. I've never heard you say that.
No, I don't say it very often. And I think because people are like, what? Like, the two can be very different, but I didn't know. I didn't know at the time. I wasn't educated on it. I kind of hid it because I was like, well, no, someone's going to take my baby away. So I mustn't say anything. I'll just work through this myself. But actually, Jesus, even if I had the toolbox to do it, I wouldn't know where the toolbox was. So, do you know, I mean, like, I needed help. And it took me until, let me think. So I started therapy when my daughter was around 1, and I reckon I must have shared stuff, just small bits, when she was about 3, maybe 4. And then I started to share more, and then I was kind of classed as in recovery, which I use brackets for, because in recovery is just, you know, it's not recovered. It's, you're in recovery, you're doing well, you've got the tools, you know how to use them. It's not like a case of, woof, everything's fine, everything's gone now. That's not a thing. Well, for me anyway. So that's when I started to share, because I felt it's not like, you know, when the only thing I can really relate it to is like a weight loss journey, where you have your before picture and you have your after picture.
Yes.
And no one really shows you the bit in between. But sometimes that can be a really private journey, and something you want to do by yourself, and something you're working so hard and focusing on, you haven't got time for anybody else to see it. You're not noticing anybody else notice it. Like, you're in the zone, you're getting on with it. And I think I very much was there, and I couldn't take anybody else's opinions or questions on. I wasn't in a place to do that. But when I kind of hit the stage of being in recovery, I kind of hit this, like, when they said it, I was like, oh my God, like, I've done this. Like, when I look back at all the steps that I've taken, and within those steps there's like 20 mini steps that I've taken, and I've sometimes had to redo them, and I look back and think, oh my God, I did that. Now I can share it. Now I can share what I've done, now that the masterpiece is there, if that makes sense. Like, I can deconstruct it now that I've finished. But you don't always want to...
It's the journey, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. But no, I have not always been open about my mental health at all.
So question number 5, do you worry about struggling with your mental health again? I feel like this is a yes and a no. I feel no, because I feel more equipped to deal with the struggles that come up. But I feel like when you've gone through something, it's always going to be in the back of your mind that is a possibility that you could have a moment where you're the lowest that you've ever been. So yeah, I feel like yes and no.
Again, yes and no. I don't think I worry about it really. I know that it's there. And I know that it's something I'm determined not to go back to. But there is always an element of me that thinks, oh, I don't know, it's different. So pregnancy and traumatic birth was a huge trigger for me in everything, everything that happened. And I found out with my second very late that I was pregnant, and some people are like, well, how? And I'm like, well, I think trauma affects you in very different ways. And it quite literally affected my body. Like, I think I kind of went into shutdown mode, and after having my first, I thought, oh, if I have another one, like, I'll get to redo it, rehash it. And we weren't getting pregnant, it wasn't happening. And I mean, there's 4 years between my two children, and we got to a stage where we were just like, do you know what's not happening? And, it is what it is. I can't have another one. So for me, I was very happy with my one. We'd gone through therapy, all of this, blah, blah, blah. And I was in a really good place. And I was like, okay, yeah, I am really lucky. I'm really lucky. Like, obviously it's weird for me to look back and say now because I have to, but in that moment I was like, I have my one, and she's incredible, and I'm so complete. And in those times I was so complete, and then I found out I was pregnant with my second.
How far gone were you when you found out?
I think about 16, 17 weeks.
Oh, okay,
yeah, so I was really quite far along. And I was, I had to go for a scan because I didn't know how far along I was. We'd missed all the, the tests, the blood tests and things like that they do. And that was kind of the first indication actually of how far along I was, because they'd said, oh, you've missed is it the Down syndrome and the
they do that at 12 weeks.
Yeah, but they said, oh, you've missed that. And I was like, oh my God, when was that done in the last? And I was pregnant like 4 or 5, do you know what I mean? Like prior to this, I was like, oh, I can't remember. And I was looking at my husband and I was like, when do they do that? And he was like, I don't know. The first time.
Do you know, like, hang on a minute, let me just get my...
Yeah, I'm just going to Google.
This.
And we're both looking at each other, and in the end I was like, so when abouts was that then that they did those tests? And she was like, oh, okay, yeah. And she explained that we were like about 16, 17 weeks.
Okay.
And I remember my husband saying, there's only one in there, right? There's only one baby. Because, this is a shock enough. And she was like, yeah, no, there's only one. But I remember them saying, is there anything you want to flag, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember who I spoke to. I think it was the midwife. And I was like, I'm going to need help here. Because the last time I was pregnant and the last time I gave birth, my whole world lit up and fell apart at once. Like, I was in a wonderful place and absolutely in self-destruct at the same time, and I don't want to do that again. I already have a little girl who has not lost out on a lot of me, but we've come through a lot. My first, I'm always like, we made it.
We were in it together.
We were in it together. We were thrown together. We clung, and that's how we've stayed. And we very much are like that. Really and I said to them, they said, oh, so how do you want to go forth with your birthing choices and stuff? Do you want to elect for a C-section? And I was like, I'm not going near that theatre again. And they were like, okay, well, it's very different, to being rushed into. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. And they were like, okay, so what are you thinking? A water bath? Do you want to go, onto the midwife-led ward? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that either. I just want you to. And they were like, well, the option is we can give you a general anaesthetic. And I was like, no, thank you. They were like,
not giving them any options here.
What are we going to do? And I was like, I just need you to make this here materialise out here. Like, I don't know how that's going to go about.
Okay.
I'm not going in the theatre. I'm not doing it. I was like, I don't want any medication, but I also don't want to be in pain. But when you're like, I was sat there fear stricken, because I was like, I know I can look after a baby, I know I can do the recovery, I know I can do these things, but I have no control over that bit. Like, once that baby's coming, no one really knows, do they?
I think you have to trust your body.
Yes, and that was a lot of work that they did with me. So I immediately went under the mental health team. I was under the consultant midwife, and I was also, my other therapy sessions were upped So I was checked in like once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And I also signed up for hypnobirthing.
Nice.
So we had the scope going on,
Yeah.
and I had
covered from all angles.
Yeah, and you know what? I had a really, really, really lovely labour. Like everything was very healing, and yeah, we moved forward. You know, I was lucky. I think I was lucky. I mean, all the work was put in, but one of my things was actually not necessarily what was happening to me, but I needed to make sure that my eldest was with my mum.
Yeah.
And I was like, no one else can have her. She has to be with my mum.
Yeah.
I was like, even if I go into labour and she's at preschool, she has to come home and be with my mum.
Okay.
Again, OCD and logic, they don't make sense. But I was like, this has to happen.
But you're super close with your mum, so it does kind of make sense.
I was like, she has to be there. This is the plan. Never mind anything else. She has to be with my mum. And my nephew was actually born the day before. So my mum was with their children. It all worked out completely fine. I basically crossed my legs and waited. and then went in and had I'm not joking, like the childcare, my poor mother, and my dad was there going, you know, obviously I looked after you as well. Do you remember that? Like, hello, I'm your dad. I can look after her. And I was like, yeah, no, I know you can, and you're more than capable, but no, it has to be mum. Like, it was just in my head, that was the thing. But yeah, so that was my main kind of worry, was childbirth and the initial bits thereafter. Now I'm like, I think that's my big trigger, and that's the only time that I really worry about falling backwards, is having another baby. And I do want more kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. We're I don't know with that. But yeah, we'll that's my only real concern, is like, that's when I worry about slipping back with my mental health, because you don't have control over hormones, you don't have control over, and there's a huge link between OCD and hormones, and I think probably other mental health issues as well. So yeah, that's my main worry, basically. Long story short. Where did we get to? Yes, so next question. You are both mothers. Do you think your journey into motherhood has been easier each time? Do you know what? I've just answered that, so I'll let you roll.
Yes and no. I feel like the more children you have, the more experience you have, which obviously sets you off. But my big thing is, every child is different, every experience is different. Plus there's also life throwing curveballs all the time. So what might have been happening with my first didn't happen with my second. I was in a very different place in my life. Then fast forward to my third, and again, very different place, very different like demands. And also I think when you have more than one child, you're then not just worried about the newborn, you've got other kids to worry about, and that can do things to your mental health. Plus lack of sleep. And the thing with my youngest is, I feel like I don't feel like there's things he's missed out on, but he gets a lot of quality like one-on-one time, because the older two have been at school since he was tiny, but there is, I don't know, he just has to share me. Like, Bella had me all to herself, and her dad, but like for 4.5 years, and then the boys have had to share us, and Joshua has to share us even more because he's the youngest. So I don't know, but
I think with that, on the flip side of that, I mean, my eldest asked for a sibling from the second she could talk, and she had to wait 4 years for that, and then my youngest has had it straight away. So I think sometimes the things that, you know, I don't give to them, but you know, in the times that you can't make for them, they have it in each other. Does that make sense? So they, in the, you know, you have a different bond, but then they have this really special bond, and sometimes it's actually nice when you stand back and look at
100%,
that.
Like the way that my kids love each other.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And now I'm here, like, obviously my youngest is 2.5, and I feel like, it sounds weird to say, but like I feel like I've completed that journey. Like, obviously I know I've got a lot of parenting left in me to do, But I just like, I feel like, I don't know, the newborn bit is so hard. And I'm in this new chapter of my life anyway. So, yeah, I just feel like it's like I'm a new mum, or not a new mum, but like a mum in a different way now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if that
I think
makes
know when you're ready to not revisit that newborn bit when.
Oh yeah, 100%. I always had in my head that I was 3.
Yeah.
And that's why I've struggled so much after my second, because of the kid's dad didn't necessarily want to have any more at first. And we you know, you got a girl and a boy. They're healthy. They're what is that? I don't know.
Glitter.
Oh, glitter.
I was trying to do it subtly.
I was like, oh, that's all good. Yeah, like, and so 3 was always in my head, and funnily enough, with my youngest, he was the hardest pregnancy and the most turmoil, essentially. But he has completed.
Yeah.
He's everything that I thought he would be.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I knew, and I'm a big believer of like the universe and how it all works out for us.
And giving you signs.
Yeah, and it was like, here's what I needed in my life. And especially going through hard times lately, because he's quite a mummy's boy, he is the thing that shows me that I am needed.
Yeah.
Even though my older 2 obviously still need me, but he is my constant reminder that like, these kids need you. And I think sometimes you need to know that you're needed.
Yeah.
When you're going through like difficult times.
Definitely.
If you could go back in time, what advice would you give to yourself? My biggest one is don't compare.
Yeah.
Don't get sucked in, because half the stuff that we see, whether it's in reality or in social media, because social media is a big influence, it's not that it's not real, but it's just like, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So like, don't be thinking that Jenny down the road is like got this perfect family with her perfect kids and her perfect house, because you don't know the struggles that she has daily. But then don't use that to impact you, to make you feel like you're a bad parent and you're like not coping, because actually someone else might be looking at you and thinking, oh my god, she's absolutely smashing it.
Yeah. True.
And ask for help.
Definitely.
That was ask for help sooner.
Yeah. What advice would I give myself? Don't tell my husband this, but probably listen to him more.
I don't think he's going to listen to us. So
no,
I think
I'm safe to say that one.
He doesn't know how to work podcasts.
No, he doesn't. He thinks it's just a radio channel. Bless him.
Yeah, he's like, are you on the radio?
Yeah. Definitely though. Oh, I don't know. There's so much advice I'd give myself. I think I'd overwhelm myself. What would I say? Definitely ask for help.
Yeah.
Slow down, maybe.
Slow
down, because I'm like 100 miles. Well, yeah, I'm 100 miles an hour or nothing at all. Where I like, with everything, I don't know, I have this weird way of going at things 100 miles an hour and then zoning out, and I will not respond, and I'm not here, I'm not doing that, if that makes sense. So learning to kind of slower the pace so that I'm consistent. I think I would be easier on myself if I did that. And actually taking my own advice as well, like I think and you know, like one of the things I've learned with parenting is like always never kind of be afraid to say sorry, if that makes sense. Like, you know, oh, mummy had a shouty moment, I'm sorry. But I think you need to do that with yourself as well sometimes.
Yeah, don't beat yourself up.
I'm sorry to myself, or like, oh, you know, when you look back and you're like, yeah, that wasn't so good, but then you think, okay, that's my lesson. That's my lesson, like to move forward from. Use things that aren't great as a stepping stone, maybe.
I love a stepping stone.
Tread on. If you can't do anything else with it, tread on it and move on from it. Like, move up from it, shall we say. What are the most important things for you to demonstrate to others, in particular your children, with regards to their mental health?
I feel really passionate about talking to my kids about mental health, especially my eldest, because I feel like she's like the preteen stage. And I've tried to show them, again, especially her, and I think differently because she's a girl. So I feel like they feel emotions more. Like, I explain to the boys that it's okay to cry, it's okay to be upset. Definitely as I've got older, I'm more in pushing into my more gentle parenting era.
Yeah.
I feel like I grew up in a household where it was much more like, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Is that the right one?
Yeah.
Tough love, all that kind of stuff, which I get, and I have my moments where I feel like it is necessary and needed, but I definitely feel like I try and explain to the kids that, okay, this is why we can't do this, or this is we're feeling this, so let's unpack it a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, communication, and I don't think they're really ever too young to communicate with. Like, you can try and talk to them about it, even
just
if it's
on their level.
Yeah, like find
definitely.
a way for them to relate. Like, obviously, my youngest is probably a bit too young to fully understand, but yeah, my eldest two, you know, Teddy's 7, so I feel like there are things that he understands, and I think kids understand a lot more than we give them grace for.
Yeah.
So 100% talking and showing them, like, if I say pick them up from school and I've had a rough day, I will say to them, Mummy's just feeling a little bit fragile.
Yeah.
I'm having a bit of a bad day. There's things that I need to do just to, like, maybe when we get in, we'll just have a bit of a quiet time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not setting myself up for failure, and I'm not setting them up for failure for me to go nuts at them over something ridiculous and me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they don't always listen to it, but sometimes they do, and sometimes, like, I was not feeling great yesterday, had some bad news in the daytime, and it was giving me like cramps and all this stress, and Bella she's like, Mum, I've got a surprise for you. Joshua was asleep and she made me a hot water bottle.
Oh, bless her.
And she bought me an extra blanket.
That's so sweet.
A bottle of water, like things like that. And I just feel like, if you know that, and I try and explain to her, especially now she's at secondary school, I try and explain to her, like, you kind of run into and like, do you know what I mean? It doesn't just stay at home, it's like everyone.
Yeah, across the board.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, so my daughter actually said to me, oh, I went, I was a good girl, I went into school and I didn't cry. And I was like, you're a good girl if you cry. And she went, huh? And I was like, oh, I'm sorry if you didn't know this before.
Yeah.
But if you cry, you're good. You're not bad for crying. You know, you can be scared and brave at the same time. There are multiple things that can go on here, and I think displaying that to them, definitely, and also teaching them to talk without fear of judgment.
Yeah.
Because I think if people are going to judge you, they're going to judge you anyway. So you may as well just be fully okay, and, you know, acceptance into yourself. 100%. And also to have boundaries. Boundaries, I use this all the time, but I'm like, again, I'm going to use my daughter as an example. One of the kids in her class wanted some hair accessory or something she had, and she said, I didn't want to give it, but then I felt bad because she was sad. And I said, but both's okay. You don't have to sacrifice how you are to make somebody else happy. If it makes you feel bad, you don't have to do it.
100%.
So it's that boundary, like, use your no to protect your yes. So if you're, do you know what I mean? Like, otherwise your yes becomes meaningless and you're just becoming this person that you're a yes man.
No one
woman,
has any.
you know. Like you are the person that will just be like, okay, and you'll be unhappy doing it. You won't want to do it. Like, so don't do it. And be okay with that. Like, it doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that you have boundaries, and boundaries are
healthy.
Great. Yes.
Question is the podcast only about maternal mental health? No, it's about all mental health. But we do, I think maternal mental health or motherhood is like at the center of it. And we kind of draw from our own experiences, which obviously has a lot to do with motherhood.
Yeah.
So we're going to move into a quick fire round of questions, as this is something we will be doing with our future guests too. So it's called Agree or Disagree. So do you think that mental health is spoken about enough?
No. That's... do you think...
That's a quick one.
Do you think therapy is offered enough before medication?
No.
No, me neither.
I think pills are shoved down our throats and be like, take this, it'll make you feel better.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you think there is a stigma around mental health?
Yes. I'm going to slightly go into that though. Yes, there is. I think if you have experienced it, not so much. If you're at the beginning of the journey, sometimes yes. I was speaking to somebody yesterday who was saying that he wasted so much time being pig-headed with himself.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't have a problem. It's not affecting me. It's not. And he said, I'm so angry at myself because I lost like a year that I could be getting help and could be better.
Oh, that's sad.
And I think that is because of a stigma, whether we realise we carry it or not, and a stigma towards ourselves for having it. Like, no, we're strong. We have to. 100%. I don't have to. No, I'm stronger than this. And it's not a case of being strong or weak. It doesn't work like that. No. Like, yeah. Do you think mental health should be focused on more in schools?
Yeah.
Yep, me too, 100%.
Do you think the UK has a lot of work to do in terms of supporting women through pregnancy, labour and thereafter? Yeah.
Yes, but I do think that we are doing better.
Yeah, I think there needs to be more focus after. If I had to pick out of pregnancy, labour or thereafter would be my topic that I feel like needs more work.
Yeah, but I think we've spoken about this before. It's not just the immediate thereafter. It's we kind of need like 2-year checks, you know, where you see them every 12 weeks or something to
for sure
check in. Are we the generation that heals past traumas from not being open about mental health?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I think people I love the term woke people.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I'm woke, but I love that. I feel like I don't see it in the term that maybe it's being used, but I feel like woke people make changes.
Yeah.
And I mean, people can be too woke, but how many times can you say woke in a sentence? I don't know. But I feel like we're of the generation that we're acknowledging things that have been in past generations and how we can.
Yeah, and I don't think we're always judging for it.
No.
Because that's just how things were. You toughen up and you get on with it.
100%.
But now, I especially find, I mean, like, I had a really happy childhood. I don't have any complaints, but, you know, my mum will say, oh yeah, no, like, actually this is a better way of doing it, or oh, I like how you do that with. So she's acknowledging things in my parenting that she would have used, but, you know, didn't have that example. And again, she had a happy childhood. It's not.
I think it's quite healing when you have those conversations with your parents.
Yeah, and I just think it is a generational thing. I don't think it's anything to do with. You can not be traumatized by your childhood and still think, I'm not going to do it like that. Though.
Yeah.
Like when you become a parent. We have a few more things to ask before we wrap up. So I'll let you go.
If you had to give 3 tips to anyone who's struggling with their mental health, what would they be? So I would be kind to yourself. I think we're too hard on ourselves. Sometimes you need to get through. Sometimes you need to try a lot of things before it actually works. So basically what I mean by that is don't do one thing, and if it doesn't give you the result that you get, like you wanted, give up. Like, because like you might try one type of therapy and think no, you might try medication, no, you might try therapy and then actually medication is needed. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't do, it's not like one size fits all. And then funnily enough, after you talked about boundaries, my third thing was boundaries.
Oh,
okay. So set yourself boundaries with people around you, because I'm a big believer that you should protect your peace, and that is even against family members, friends. And I think people get stuck in situations, and if we're talking in motherhood, like your brain changes so much due to hormones and everything. And often when people have children, so mothers and fathers, when they have children and they bring this person into the world, your reality changes and the way you look at life changes and your priorities change. So I have definitely protected my peace and done things, cut people out if it's that extreme, but like, you know, done things to set boundaries for myself, because if nothing changes. So if you're in a place where you're like low mental health, sometimes you have to have a really hard look at your environment and be like, is this environment causing me to feel this way? And that's where I think your boundaries come into play.
See, that ties in with mine. I was saying, adjust everything around you.
We're so connected.
This is what I've heard. Adjust everything around you, because it all affects, even if you think it doesn't.
Yeah.
And as I said before, it's a lifestyle change. It's not like a quick fix. So adjust everything. Look at everything, even the smallest things. Take it all in and reshuffle until you find what works. It's the same as like, we've not long moved into our house and I've moved the furniture that many times because I'm like, this isn't right. So the other is never stop trying to get help. Because again, you you can have a great GP, you can go there, and again, I'm not knocking GPs, they can be fantastic, but sometimes, I don't know, if they're in a rush, or if the knowledge isn't there to them, or I don't know, if they're conscious of waiting lists, this, that, and there's so many aspects to it. But if you go and you try and open up, and it's not met with an immediate absorption of how you're feeling and being able to give you help, don't give up. Don't give up, because that one interaction can make such a difference to somebody.
Such a difference.
Either way, but don't let that one interaction rule everything. Just if you feel you need help, and you just keep going until you get it. And the other thing is, no one can recover for you, and there is no easy path. But when you find the right people, you can kind of partner in getting up the hill together. So don't, again, find, you know, it's, as you said, it's not one size fits all. Yeah. So, yeah.
Are there any charities or groups that stand out in your mind as a place to go to find support? So the two that I put down were Samaritans and Mind. Because I don't think they're specific to parenting. Samaritans is wonderful. I've done work with them, be it like fundraising and stuff, and like really looked into it. Also, another one that I really like, which I didn't actually put down but just come into my head, is Papyrus.
Okay.
So that's more about children. So like if you've got children that are struggling with their mental health, they specify in young children, and that is, I think they do really amazing work. So not just for you, but like for your family as well. Samaritans and Mind.
Mine is Talking Therapies. That's just where I landed, and that's just what helped me. And I was really lucky. I had 2 different therapists, and I can't speak highly enough of them. Like, in a way, I kind of wish I could meet them in person and be like, look at me now, like this, you helped that, you did this. And also, weirdly enough, and this is going to sound a strange one, but Peloton for me really helped.
I really want a Peloton.
I mean, I don't have a Peloton, I have the app and a treadmill. But it does the job. I went and got myself a bike, and I just stick my phone there with the app on it.
Nice.
But for me, I felt like I was like a part of a community, a part of, I was moving with these people. So that for me helped, because
that's a good shout out there, actually. Like, you don't have to get sucked into the Peloton
no.
Like running treadmill and stuff. So that's a good way.
That's how I did it. That's what I could afford. That was what worked for me. And also, I am very much like, I like to be a part of that community, but also sometimes I need to be able to shut that off. You see those you see the adverts, don't you, for the mum groups at 3:00 in the morning, and she's coming out of the room and she's going, oh, I'm so glad you guys are here, like I can't sleep. And I said to my husband, I was like, God, that's like my worst nightmare, like talking to people at that time of the morning. For one, I get it really works for some people, but that part of my personality that I have really accepted is that I am a shut down person sometimes, and I just want to be left alone. So that doesn't work for me. So a community that will leave me alone. So Peloton worked for me. Talking Therapies.
And also you can kind of check into a Peloton when it's on your terms. Like like your phone's not pinging off because of there's like 15 new messages in the group chat, and you're like.
I'm not about that life. Any group chat, me not doing it.
Never add Jay to a group chat.
Don't do it.
Mental
don't do it. I will not respond.
Okay.
Okay. Last question. What does mental wealth mean to you?
So, I think mental wealth is knowing that things are going to happen, good and bad. You're going to get good days, you're going to get bad days. And knowing and trusting in yourself that regardless, you can get through it. Because my mantra to myself that I have said a lot over the years is you have survived 100% of everything you've been through. Because when we're in it, when you're in the depths of struggling, you can be like, oh my God, I can't do it. Like I said that to myself so many times. And I just come back to, you've survived everything that you thought you couldn't do before, and you're here to tell the tale, and you're still going through it, and you're going to get it, you're going to get amazing, you're going to get crazy highs, you're going to get such difficult lows, but having the mental wealth to navigate through those difficult times, I think that would mean to me like, okay, I feel like I've got this.
Yeah, definitely. I love this question. Mental wealth to me is knowing that I do not have to be symptom free to be mentally well.
Yeah.
So for me, it's being in tune with my triggers, my symptoms, and listening to my body, all aspects of my body.
Yeah.
Using my tools, and most of all, like my voice to stay honest. So when I can not be able to put, that's my main frustration, is when like I'm agitated but I can't find the source. That I'm then like, but sometimes accepting that I don't always have to find the source. I just need to use the tools until I can figure it out. Do you know what I mean? And also, like, I guess it's all about balance, isn't it? I remember thinking, my God, I feel like I'm at a tennis court when everything was happening, and I have like one bat, but I have about 500 balls coming at me, and I'm just trying to hit them all off. But actually, somebody said to me before, well, what's the worst thing that would happen if you let some pass by? Like, either you don't have to hit them all, they'll either bounce back and try again, or someone else will get them, a net will get them, I don't know, a crowd will get them, I don't know, someone behind there. I'm trying to think of how tennis works. But, you don't have to hit them all. Go for the ones that, like, highlight the ones that
are the most important,
and make that as few as possible. And I think that for me is mental wealth, like just finding those few key tennis balls and making sure I'm dealing with those, but being in tune. I don't have to be a-okay all the time
100%.
To be mentally well. That's what I would say. So thank you for listening to us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, our community is built together, and we could not do this without you, our listeners, and our village. We promise to continue replacing judgment for curiosity, to learn and grow with you.
We are all weathering many storms, and sometimes the only step we can make, however small, is forward. So if forward is your pace today, we respect you and we are right beside you.